Congratulations, you've passed the test. $10 million is your reward for honesty. The entire hall froze. A glass slipped from someone's hand, shattering the silence, as the man who spoke, Draven Solace, the billionaire behind Solace Meridian Holdings, stepped forward. Moments earlier, everyone had laughed when the waitress returned a black leather wallet to the reception desk, insisting it wasn't hers, even though it held a black card and the stacks of cash. They called her a stupid saint, a broke girl playing virtuous. None of them knew the wallet was a $10 million honesty test planted by Solace himself. And now, in front of every mocking face, he handed her the envelope and said quietly, "In this room, she's the only one who proved integrity still exists." The hall didn't just freeze, it combusted with a silent, searing heat. Draven's bodyguard, a man built like granite who had been blending into the wall, took a discreet step forward as a high-pitched, hysterical shriek pierced the silence. It came from the woman in the sequined gown, the one who had called Olivia a broke girl playing virtuous. Her friend clutched her arm, pulling her back, but the woman fought free, her expensive champagne splashing the marble. Her face, usually mask-like in its social poise, was contorted not with regret, but with raw, blinding fury at the injustice of it all. The fact that her judgment had cost her the respect of the most powerful man in the room, perhaps even access to the network he represented. She didn't shout at Olivia. She turned her vitriol onto the reception desk clerk who had originally accepted the wallet, hissing, "You should have kept your mouth shut. This is ridiculous. $10 million for a prank." Her partner yanked her away, murmuring furious apologies to thin air, but the scene had been set. Not everyone present felt shame. Some felt violently cheated by the rules of integrity they had long forgotten. Olivia, passing them, merely raised her chin a fraction higher, acknowledging their internal chaos with her profound indifference. Olivia stood there, her hands steady, holding the envelope without looking at it. Her plain gray dress hung loosely, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, just her. The room's chandeliers glittered above casting light, on faces twisted with shock, envy, or shame. She didn't smile or flinch. Her eyes, dark and calm, scanned the crowd, lingering on no one. The weight of their stares pressed down, but she stood like she always had, shoulders back, chin level, as if the world's judgment was just background noise. A woman in a sequined gown whispered to her friend, loud enough to carry, "She doesn't even look grateful." Olivia's fingers tightened slightly on the envelope, but she said nothing. She turned her sneakers silent on the marble floor and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted, some staring, some looking away. Nobody spoke. Not yet. The night before, Olivia had been wiping down tables at the corner cafe, her apron stained with coffee grounds. She had found the wallet on the sidewalk outside, black leather gleaming under a streetlight. It was heavy, stuffed with crisp bills and a card that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a wallet. She didn't open it long, just enough to see there was no ID. Her shift was ending, her feet ached, and the cold bit through her thin jacket. A guy passing by in a tailored coat saw her holding it and smirked. "Finders keepers, right? Don't be dumb, girl." Olivia looked at him, her face blank. "It's not mine," she said, and kept walking toward the police station 2 blocks away. The guy laughed, shaking his head like she was the punchline to a joke nobody told her. At the station, the desk officer, a kid barely older than her with a buzz cut and a bored slouch, barely looked up from his phone. "You're turning this in." "Really?" He flipped through the wallet, whistling at the stack of hundreds. "People like you act all noble, then pocket half when no one's looking." Olivia's jaw tightened, but she didn't snap back. She wrote her name and number on a form, her handwriting, neat, deliberate. "If the owner needs to call, I'm here," she said. The officer snorted, tossing the wallet into a drawer. "Yeah, sure, Saint of the Year." She stood there a moment, her hands in her pockets, then turned and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and the street was quiet again, just her and the hum of the city. The officer, still snorting, grabbed the police station phone, a battered relic with a coiled cord, and dialed a number he'd memorized weeks ago, a private line he was specifically instructed never to use. He spoke in clipped, hushed tones, confirming the details of the drop-off and the description of the young woman who had just left. He mentioned the pristine condition of the cash and the black card, emphasizing that she hadn't taken a single bill or even asked a question. He hung up quickly, rubbing his temples, the bravado from moments before gone, replaced by a nervous energy. He didn't understand the scope of the game, but he understood the look in Draven Solace's silent, intense eyes When he'd been briefed earlier that week, failure to confirm the wallet's safe return in under 1 hour means termination. He pulled the heavy drawer back open, confirming the wallet was still there untouched, then looked at the form where Olivia's name was written. He shook his head, a muscle jumping in his cheek, utterly failing to reconcile the expensive contents with the tired, honest eyes of the girl who had brought them in. He crumpled the carbon copy of the receipt in his hand, his initial skepticism, battling with the sudden, uncomfortable realization that he might have been wrong about the saint of the year. Outside, a black SUV idled at the curb. The window rolled down, and a man in a sharp suit leaned out. Taryn Alaric, Draven Solis's right-hand man, had eyes like a hawk, cold and calculating. He sized her up, her faded jeans, her scuffed shoes, and his lip curled slightly. "You're the one who found it," he said, not a question. "Mr. Solis wants to meet you, unless you're scared of people with real money." Olivia tilted her head just enough to meet his gaze. "I'm not scared of anyone," she said. Her voice was steady, like she was stating a fact, not making a point. Taryn raised an eyebrow, then nodded toward the car. She hesitated, her hand brushing the strap of her bag, then got in. The door closed with a heavy thud, and the city blurred past the tinted windows. The next morning, she was at Solis Meridian Holdings, a glass tower that seemed to touch the clouds. The lobby was all marble and steel, with people in suits moving like they owned time itself. Olivia stood out like a smudge on a mirror. Her sweater was too big, her shoes too worn. A receptionist with perfect nails glanced at her, then looked away like Olivia was invisible. Taryn led her to a conference room where Draven Solis waited. He was tall, his suit tailored to a fault, his face unreadable. "Did you open the wallet?" he asked, no greeting, no smile. Olivia met his eyes. "I saw the money, but I figured there's something worth more peace of mind when you don't steal." Draven's face didn't change, but his eyes flickered like he was seeing her for the first time. He nodded once, then left. Taryn handed her a card. "Come back Monday, temporary assistant gig. Don't mess it up." If you're still here feeling that knot in your chest, hit that like button. Share a comment about a time someone judged you wrong. Subscribe, because this story, it's for all of us who've been underestimated. Let's keep going. Monday came, and Olivia walked into the office like she was stepping into a lion's den. The other assistants, all polished and perfumed, stared as she set her bag down. One, a woman with a sleek bob and a designer blouse, Clara, who thrived on office gossip, leaned over to her friend. "What's she doing here? Did they start hiring from the thrift store?" Laughter rippled through the cubicles. Olivia kept her eyes on her computer, her fingers moving steadily on the keyboard. Another assistant, Mark, a guy with a fake tan and an ego to match, dropped a stack of files on her desk. "Don't screw this up, charity case," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Olivia paused, looked up, and said, "I won't." 2 words calm and final. Mark blinked, then walked away, his smirk faltering. The harassment escalated beyond verbal jabs by the end of Monday afternoon. While Olivia was fetching a document from the printer, Clara and Mark, working in tandem with the practiced cruelty of petty tyrants, engineered a minor disaster. Clara subtly nudged a cooling vent near Olivia's desk, causing a draft that sent a precarious stack of unbound budget projections, the very ones Mark had deliberately placed there, cascading across the floor and under several neighboring cubicles. Mark then strode over, clicking his tongue loudly. "Seriously, charity case can't handle 10 sheets of paper. That's tomorrow's board report. If even 1 page is missing, you know who Solis is going to blame." He didn't wait for her to respond. Simply walked away and watched from his desk, a satisfied, expectant half-smile playing on his lips. Olivia returned to the scattered pages, seeing the trap for what it was, a setup designed to make her late look incompetent or lose critical, highly confidential data. She knelt instantly, her fingers moving swiftly and methodically, not gathering pages, but checking the index of the stack, then counting the numbered pages in sequence, meticulously reorganizing them into chronological order. Her face utterly devoid of emotion, her movements precise and fast. She finished the task in under 90 seconds, placing the stack back on her desk with a decisive thud that somehow managed to be both silent and commanding. The office was a machine, and Olivia was the part that didn't fit. People whispered when she passed. "She's probably sleeping her way up," Clara said at the coffee machine, her voice carrying. "No one's that honest." Olivia poured her coffee, her hands steady, and walked back to her desk. She didn't look at Clara, but her silence was louder than any comeback. By noon, Taryn called her into his office. A thick envelope sat on his desk, unmarked, bulging slightly. "Found this in the break room," he said, watching her like a test proctor. "What do you do with it?" Olivia picked it up, felt the weight, and handed it back. "I'd turn it in. I only keep what I earn." Taryn's eyes narrowed, but he took the envelope and waved her out. Behind her, Clara muttered, "She's just playing pure for the cameras." That night, Olivia sat in her tiny apartment, the train rumbling past her window. A photo of her mom sat on the table, a woman with tired eyes and a warm smile. Olivia touched the frame, her fingers lingering. Years ago, her mom had worked 3 jobs too, teaching her to hold her head high no matter what. "You don't need their approval," she'd said, her voice rough from long shifts. "You need your own." Olivia's phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Check your mail." She opened her mailbox downstairs and found an envelope from Solus Meridian. Inside, a letter, "Temporary assistant to Chairman Solus. Start tomorrow." She folded it carefully, her face unreadable, and went back upstairs. The train rattled on like it was carrying her thoughts away. The next day, the office buzzed with rumors. "She's a plant," Mark said, leaning against Clara's desk. "No way she's legit. Probably a sob story to make Solus look good." Olivia walked in her plain sweater, unchanged her steps even. She sat down, opened her laptop, and started typing. Clara strutted over her heels, clicking. "You know, sweetie, you could at least try to look like you belong here," she said, her smile sharp as a blade. Olivia looked up, her eyes steady. "I'm here to work, not to impress you." The words landed like a stone in still water. Clara's smile froze, and she walked away, her heels louder now. In the corner, an older man, Elias Draven's driver, watched, his weathered face softening. He'd seen this before, people tearing down what they didn't understand. During the midday break, the entire floor was called to a mandatory impromptu morale check led by Taryn. It wasn't about morale, it was a thinly veiled attempt to assert the company's hierarchy. Taryn, standing by the panoramic window, didn't mention the tests, but his gaze fell directly on Olivia, whose plain gray sweater stood in stark contrast to the dark custom-made wool surrounding her. He lifted a hand to silence the nervous chatter and cleared his throat. "I want to remind everyone here that Solus Meridian Holdings represents excellence. That excellence extends to presentation commitment and, frankly, the understanding that professionalism requires investment." He paused, allowing his words to hang heavily, then gestured with a dismissive flick of his wrist. "If you cannot afford to dress for the level of success you aspire to, perhaps this is not the right environment for you to aspire in." The room went still. Every eye in the office swiveled toward Olivia's worn shoes and simple clothes. Clara smiled, a full, cruel, unmasked victory. Olivia felt the blood rush from her face, not from embarrassment, but from the sudden white-hot clarity of understanding they weren't challenging her honesty. They were challenging her poverty. She didn't move or look away. She simply took a slow, deep breath, tightened her hands on the notepad in her lap, and locked her gaze on Taryn, who shifted uncomfortably under her steady, unblinking scrutiny. Draven called her in later that day. He sat behind his desk, a man who carried power like a second skin. "If I told you to keep that envelope, the 50 grand, what would you do?" he asked. Olivia didn't hesitate. "I'd give it to a charity in my mom's name. She always said what you give away is what's worth keeping." Draven leaned back, his eyes on a small photo on her desk, her mom smiling in a faded dress. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window and said, "Get back to work." Olivia nodded and left. In the security room, Draven pulled up her file, donations to an orphanage every month from a paycheck that barely covered rent. He closed the file, his jaw tight. "No more tests," he told Taryn. "She's done enough." The story broke the next week. Marielle Thorne, a journalist with a nose for scandal and a wardrobe to match, published a piece, "Billionaire Buys Honesty for $10 million." The headline spread like wildfire. Olivia's face was everywhere, blurry photos from the cafe, the police station, the office. Comments online tore her apart. "She's faking it for clout," one read. "Poor girl playing the saint card," said another. The morning after Marielle Thorne's sensationalized article hit the digital wires, the lobby of Solus Meridian Holdings became a media circus. Reporters lined the street with boom mics and telephoto lenses, eager for a glimpse of the billionaire's honest muse. Taryn had security divert all staff through a basement entrance, but the chaos still permeated the building. Inside his glass-walled office, Draven Solis watched the television screen, which was running a continuous loop of a blurry, zoomed-in photo of Olivia leaving the police station, juxtaposed with graphics detailing the staggering $10 million figure. He saw the toxic comments scroll beneath the live feed. Scam artist, faking it for a reality show, a Cinderella waiting for a gold carriage. Taryn, looking worried, stepped up to the desk. "Sir, the board is asking for a statement. They want us to refute the prank angle and deny any employment change." Draven didn't turn from the screen. "No comment," he stated, his voice flat. "Let them talk." Taryn frowned. "Sir, she's being savaged. Her privacy is gone." Draven finally turned, his expression hard. "If the integrity is real, it must withstand the fire. If she is who I think she is, she doesn't need my defense yet. This is the final layer of the test. Taryn, the test of endurance." He returned his gaze to the news, a deliberate, calculated risk, choosing silence over defense, allowing the world's cynicism to become Olivia's crucible. At the office, people stopped talking when she walked by. Her neighbors, people she'd known for years, started whispering. "Honest my ass," a guy shouted from across the street, snapping her picture. Olivia kept walking, her bag slung over her shoulder, her face a mask of calm. She didn't stop to argue. She never did. If this story's hitting you, if you've ever been judged for being yourself, take a second. Like this video, leave a comment about your own moment of truth, and subscribe. We're in this together, and Olivia's story, it's for all of us who've been knocked down and kept going. The pressure didn't let up. At the cafe, customers stared, some pointing. "That's her." A woman whispered, her nails tapping her phone screen. "The one who tricked the billionaire." Olivia wiped down tables, her movements deliberate, ignoring the eyes on her. At the office, Clara left a tabloid on her desk, the headline screaming about her stunt. Olivia pushed it aside, her fingers brushing the photo of her mom. She didn't read it. She didn't need to. The relentless psychological warfare reached a crescendo that evening, just as Olivia was packing her meager things. Clara, her face flushed with a mixture of spite and cheap white wine from a social mixer, loitered by Olivia's desk. As Olivia momentarily turned her back to shut down her computer, Clara snatched the small framed photo of Olivia's mother off the corner of the desk, holding it loosely, pretending to examine it with exaggerated distaste. "Oh, look. The inspiration for the whole act," she sneered, and with deliberate slowness, she lifted her hand to let the small, cheap frame slip. It clattered to the marble floor, the glass shattering with a startling, brittle sound that cut through the low hum of the nearly empty office. It was a calculated move, a public, irreparable destruction of the one thing Olivia visibly cared about. The shattered glass lay like crystalline shrapnel. Olivia went absolutely still. She didn't rush, she didn't shout. Instead, she turned slowly, her dark eyes settling on Clara's triumphant face with an unnerving, complete lack of heat. She simply bent down, picked up the broken frame, and then without a single word picked up the largest shard of glass and laid it sharply and precisely on the corner of Clara's perfectly manicured mahogany desk. It was an act of nonviolence, a silent, chilling demarcation of boundaries, stating unequivocally that while she might tolerate their words, the destruction of her memories was unacceptable. Clara flinched back, her bravado evaporating under the intensity of Olivia's silent, unwavering stare, quickly retreating as if she had just touched a high-voltage wire. That night, she walked home, the city lights blurring into streaks. A car passed, an old sedan like the one her mom used to drive. She stopped, her breath catching, then kept walking. The memory didn't need words. It was in the sound of the engine, the way the headlights cut through the dark. Then the video dropped. A grainy clip from the police station, time-stamped the night she found the wallet. Olivia handing it over, her voice clear. "It's not mine." The officer smirked the way he tossed it in the drawer. It went viral. Comments flipped. "She didn't know whose it was," one user wrote. "She's the real deal." Draven called a meeting, his face grim. In front of the staff, he played the clip, then said, "That wallet held a contract worth $10 million, not cash. Data that could have tanked this company. She saved us." Taryn, standing by the door, looked down, his hands in his pockets. "I was wrong," he said, his voice low. Olivia stood there, her arms crossed, saying nothing. Draven looked at her. "Honesty doesn't need an audience, but today you deserve one." The fallout came fast. A fake charity popped up online, the Kalia Foundation asking for donations in her name. The headlines turned again. "Honest Girls Scam Exposed." Olivia was called to a boardroom, investigators waiting. They asked about the charity, their voices sharp. She sat straight, her hands folded. "I don't know anything about it," she said. They pressed harder, but she didn't budge. The boardroom felt colder than the marble lobby, filled with the sterile energy of 3 investigators from Solus Meridian's external compliance firm. They weren't gossips like Clara. They were professionals tasked with finding holes in her story, and they focused on the Kalia Foundation's sudden appearance. Miss Hayes, the lead investigator, a sharp woman named Miss Kincaid, asked, her voice dry and prosecutorial. "Can you provide us with any evidence, any correspondence, any texts, any shared IP address that links you to the formation of this foundation, which coincidentally bears the name of your deceased mother?" The question was a trap, phrased to imply guilt. Olivia sat perfectly straight, her hands resting calmly on the table, still wearing the plain thick-knit sweater she'd worn days ago. She looked directly at Miss Kincaid. "No," she said. "I cannot, because I did not create it. I do not have a burner phone. I do not have anonymous shell accounts, and I do not have time or interest in running a scam. The truth is simple, and you are trying to complicate it, because simple honesty is rare in this building." She didn't raise her voice, but the conviction in her tone was absolute. The silence that followed was heavy, forcing the investigators to shuffle their papers, their usual psychological leverage failing completely against her total unblinking factual defense. They realized they weren't dealing with a panicked assistant, but someone who had nothing left to lose by telling the truth, and therefore nothing to fear from their questions. Draven watched from the corner, his face unreadable. Later, he called Taryn. Find out who's behind it. Taryn traced the account straight to a rival company, one that had screwed Draven over years ago. He went public, clearing her name. Olivia didn't go back to the office. She left a note, "Thanks for believing me, even for a moment." Draven found her a week later at a community center near her apartment. She was teaching kids to read, her voice soft but firm, a book open in her lap. He stood in the doorway watching. The kids laughed, tugging at her sleeve. She didn't see him at first. When she did, she stood brushing her hands on her jeans. "What now?" she asked. Draven stepped forward. "The test is over. But I don't need an employee. I need someone who reminds me people can still be good." Olivia looked at him, her eyes searching his. She didn't smile, but she nodded. "I'm not here to fix anyone," she said. "But I'll walk with you." He held out his hand. She took it, her grip steady. The rumors didn't stop. Marielle Thorne struck again. Billionaire proposes to poor girl to save face. The internet split. Some called Olivia a gold digger. Others called her a hero. She didn't read the comments. At a press conference, Draven stood beside her, his voice calm. "I didn't ask her to marry me to fix anything. I asked because she brought back my faith in people." Olivia looked out at the cameras, her face still. "I didn't say yes," she said, her voice clear. "I said I'd walk with him." The room went quiet. She squeezed his hand, then let go, stepping back. The cameras flashed, but she was already turning away, her steps, even her head high. The press conference intended to quash the engagement. Rumors ended abruptly after Olivia's defining statement. "I didn't say yes, I said I'd walk with him." The next thing the frenzied journalists saw was Draven Solus stepping out of the spotlight and holding open the door of the venue. But Olivia didn't follow him toward the waiting black SUV. Instead, she turned, walked to the edge of the stage, and spoke directly to Elias, the weathered-faced driver who had watched her in the office. "Elias," she called out clearly, her voice cutting through the remaining noise. "My mother's car is parked 2 blocks from here, the old sedan. I need a hand checking the brake fluid before I drive it." Elias, who had been leaning against the wall, his job seemingly over, straightened instantly, a genuine rare smile creasing his face. He nodded once, acknowledging the request not as a demand, but as an act of shared manual labor. Draven watched this exchange, the powerful executive momentarily forgotten, as his co-founder chose the company of the working man over the corporate jet, prioritizing a practical chore over a victory lap. He didn't interrupt. He simply walked toward his SUV, gave Taryn a sharp, silent look, and nodded toward Elias and Olivia. "Follow them, Taryn, quietly, and bring a torque wrench. I suspect she won't let us pay someone else to do the work she can do herself." It was the first time Draven had asked to participate in her world, not just observe it. A year later, Olivia stood at the head of a conference table, her sweater traded for a simple blazer. Solus Human Trust, a new foundation, had her name as co-founder. Its mission support workers who did the right thing no matter the cost. Marielle Thorne showed up, notebook in hand, asking for an interview. Olivia looked at her, her eyes steady. "We've all messed up," she said, "but nobody's locked out of learning what's right." Marielle nodded, her pen still. Draven stepped forward, announcing a $10 million donation, the same amount from the wallet test. The building's screens lit up. Honesty isn't a choice, it's who you are. Olivia stepped onto the balcony, the city sprawling below, lights flickering like stars. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from pain, but from knowing kindness still had a place. Clara lost her job the next week. Her emails leaked, showing she'd spread the worst rumors. Mark's sponsorship deals dried up, his social media quiet. Marielle's blog traffic tanked, her credibility gone. Nobody said much about it. The truth just caught up like it always does. Olivia didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her silence now carried weight, her steps sure. The world had doubted her, but she'd never doubted herself. And that was enough. For everyone who's been judged, dismissed, or silenced, you weren't wrong. You weren't alone. Your truth matters. Keep walking. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing.